Amese, Ensumba, Abene Binham Neo Wule, Fitokida Brasamada Siphiwe Baleka. I greeted you in the language of my Balanta ancestors, including my fifth generation great-grandfather, who was captured as an 8-year-old boy in his village of Unche in the country of Guinea-Bissau, trafficked across the Atlantic, and subjected to chattel enslavement in the United States, which resulted in ethnocide. There are now documented 6,534 Balanta people that were trafficked to the United States, and an estimated minimum of 30,000 of us. Not only did I greet you in my ancestral language, I wore an article of our traditional clothing, which according to the 1740 Negro law in South Carolina, I would be subject to up to 40 whippings on my back for possessing. I now live in my ancestral homeland. I have repatriated, the first of my family to return after 250 years of living in the land of our captivity in the United States. I am the living example that it is possible to recover from United States state-sanctioned ethnocide. I have the following questions. What remedies are available to the Balanta people in America for redress of ethnocide? 2, will the government of the United States engage the government of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau to negotiate our voluntary repatriation? Question 3, how can the Balanta Brasa History and Genealogy Society in America, of which I am the president, how can we engage in the process of receiving reparations for the crimes of chattel slavery and ethnocide in the United States?
That's 2 minutes.
And my last question, well, I'll just leave it with those 3. Thank you.
I just wanted to go back to the question about some of the environmental issues in Atlanta.
Introduce yourself, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Kareem Marshall. I'm the Senior Advisor for Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. So I'm alarmed to hear that one of our regions hasn't responded to you, so I'll get your information at the end of this so that we can close that loop. Secondarily, as you all know, as a federal system, permitting can be a complicated process. So I'd like to follow up with you to talk about how we can better coordinate, because we have expanded a lot of our efforts to work with our partners in states to make sure that they are adhering to the delegated authority that's provided by our act. So I just want to make sure we close that loop. Thank you. Thank you.
I guess it's me again. So first, thank you for the question. From the DOJ perspective, I could talk about our work around trafficking and how we are committed to responding to that. And I defer to other agencies about some of the kind of non-domestic aspects of your question. I guess I want to start by saying that we are committed to responding to human trafficking and using all of the tools that we have available to be responsive there. In fact, in January of last year, the department released our national strategy to combat human trafficking, which is designed not only to prevent trafficking, but is also committed to the prosecution of human trafficking, the protection of victims and survivors, and the partnerships at every level of government. And we are actually working in close coordination with our colleagues at the Department of Homeland Security, colleagues of the Department of Labor and elsewhere to make sure that we are being as responsive and utilizing a whole of government approach here. I think that in terms of some of the specific kind of questions and flags that you raised about voluntary repatriation. Again, that's not something that we have within our statutory authority in terms of the prosecution of human trafficking cases. But what we can do and what we are committed to doing is making sure that we hold perpetrators of trafficking accountable through our justice system, whether that's through criminal prosecutions, whether that's through the use of our civil authorities to be responsive. And we're also really committed to making sure that victims are addressed to the extent that the federal law allows. Again, there's not any we don't have any federal authority at the Justice Department as it pertains to reparations. And so again, I can't be responsive to that concern, but to the extent that there are ways that we can help make victims of any federal crime, including trafficking, whole, we have an Office of Victim Services that's committed to that. And certainly we're happy to have further conversations about ways in which we could, within, again, our authorities, be more responsive to the concerns of your community and to all communities. Thank you.
I would like to thank you again for sharing your story and the questions. I'd like to offer a brief response to say this version does acknowledge the history Brady, Black American under this administration government working to advance justice and equity. Address the last. On his first day in office, executive order, government, this executive order, full of government. That all Americans.
Could you speak into the mic for the webcast?
That Congress is considering legislation that would establish a study of reparations. We think that Congress is the appropriate venue for consideration of such action, and we will continue to monitor that. I want to thank you again for your comments today.
Thank you, Attorney General.
Thank you so much. Again, Aaron Ford, Attorney General from Nevada. First, let me say how delightful it is to hear that you've been able to trace your heritage back and your roots to the continent. I've endeavored to do that, and I keep getting stuck somewhere in Alabama, right? And I don't mean that in jest. It's a difficult task, and it's one that, unfortunately, many of us are unable to complete because of our history of chattel slavery. What I'm going to respond, how I'm going to respond is going to be entirely unsatisfactory to you. Because you're asking about reparations, and you're asking about an approach that has been an age-old conversation for years. And while we wait on the federal government, as has been indicated, for Congress to act in this regard, I'll just point you to some of the things that other municipalities are doing. San Francisco, as an example, has enacted, I believe it's San Francisco, or maybe it's the county itself, has enacted a policy related to reparations that might give you some guidance or some suggestions and ideas on how to proceed in that regard. But as you know, this is an age-old conversation around reparations, among other things you've asked about. And just on this point in particular, I just want to say, I commend you again for continuing to pursue this issue, and congratulate you on being able to trace your heritage back in that regard. And I just encourage you to continue moving forward with this questioning.
If I may, real quick, can someone address the issue of ethnocide that I raised?
I again want to thank you for your comments, and we take them with great seriousness. I will take this back, and we will give it consideration to the extent that ethnocide is a crime. I think the Department of Justice gave the comments that they're able to offer, but if any of my other colleagues want to speak to this. Thank you.
Good afternoon.